to know. All right, ready?
We're thinking out 45 minutes, hour-ish, hour and a
Just it
half-ish.
doesn't matter however long it
We'll
takes.
just go.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Hello everyone and welcome to This Nintendo Life. My name is NBZ and we are here for the Switch, a spectacular. I'm joined of course by Bali. Bali, it's 5:27 my time. You're at half six.
I'm at 6:30. I've been up since about 3:30, and yeah, I'm a bit tired, but I'm kind of with it.
Yeah.
The Red Bull's
Yeah.
there. It's just sort of lingering.
It's
I'm
cresting.
feeling
It keeps you
Yeah,
cresting over the edge, which is
a
good.
little.
But we are, of course, here to talk about the Nintendo Switch presentation, which just took place. Ran about an hour in length, which was what people were saying it was going to be. I wouldn't necessarily call it tight, but,
Man, conferences are just not tight, are
they
they?
have pacing issues for sure.
slow as
Like, you
hell.
start to realize once they did this that I don't really miss them that much from Nintendo.
Yeah,
The direct format certainly is much more fun, and it has a pace to it that is much swifter. They can stuff a lot more into it as well. So that made sense. But Vali, before we jump in, just give me your initial impressions. What did you think of the presentation? How did you feel about it?
Like I said, didn't like the pacing, but I think that's a wider issue with conferences, not necessarily this conference in particular. I was super shocked. There was a real lack of information in some key areas
Yeah.
we can get into, and generally it felt like a very detached message from the sort of 3-minute trailer that was the reveal of the Switch initially. It felt very detached from that, and like they were really going for a different audience here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where, of course, we knew that there was going to be a touchscreen and there was going to have Joy-Con stuff going on. They're going to have accelerometers, gyros, IR, all this nonsense. It had all been rumored, and it's all true. But the way that they started this thing off really felt like a wet fart. You know, they were just like, okay, here's the thing, and we're going to spend forever talking about these Joy-Cons, like really, really long time, to the point where it just dragged and killed a lot of momentum, and it was combined with a couple of software announcements they had that were tied to that stuff, which again is like the whole idea of the Switch. Initially the pitch was, hey, this is just a normal video game console, you play it at home, you play it on the plane, wherever, you take it with you, and now they're starting to introduce, oh, by the way, this can be a Wii as well, oh, and also we can do like fun multiplayer outside stuff, and it's definitely them trying to straddle a line that I don't think they should be doing. But there are some ways in which we could say that it's potentially smart. So maybe let's get into that. I think the first thing to kick off, they announced the release date and price and all that stuff straight off the bat. So it's coming out way earlier than we expected, March 3rd. Bali, that is definitely a shock to the system, I think.
It really is. I wasn't really ready for it. I'm sort of planning my weekends and how to order this thing and how I'm going to play this thing. And yeah, it's all a bit, wow, that's really early. So was quite an early on positive in the conference. And yeah, like the price we've worked out for the UK is going to be about £280, which is
It's steep.
steep, but we were always going to get it steep in comparison to the United States,
Thanks,
perhaps.
Brexit, you fuck. Just ruining everything.
Everything.
Price for US is $299.99, which I think is a lot of people were expecting the 250 price point because there was the rumor that one SKU would be with a game with extra memory, maybe that would be the 300 higher price,
that
and
was
then the
really
other
weird.
one would be 250 without all that stuff. And
There
it
are
looks,
two SKUs, MBZ.
yeah, the two SKUs are weird because they're not actually anything like substantial. One of them is like, hey, we have colored Joy-Cons. The other one is like, nah, normal Joy-Cons.
And that's it.
That's
all.
it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
There's no variation there whatsoever, which is
What is that?
no
Why not at
packing.
all?
No packing, surprisingly, unless they change that before launch. No packing, I think, is a bad move. I think, at the very least, they should put something like 1-2 Switch in there, which seemed like it was a candidate to be, hey, no one's going to actually go to a store and buy this. Because this seems like very light, it seems very thin.
Do you think 1-2 Switch could be like Wii Play, where it maybe comes with a set of Joy-Cons?
Oh, that's potential as well. Maybe we should explain this before we dive straight in. So one of the first games they announced was this thing called 1-2 Switch, and this kind of came alongside their entire diatribe about the Joy-Con. So a couple things about the Joy-Cons. They have
Went on for
gyro.
about 20 minutes.
Yeah, it did. It went on a long time. They have gyro, they have accelerometer. I think that's in both of them because that makes sense for Splatoon and stuff, for motion aiming and everything. The right Joy-Con has an IR sensor, which they showed, hey, you can do rock, paper, scissors, and it will interpret it. And also it can show distance from the TV. Just like, great, okay, and that's weird and interesting, but whatever. And then both these Joy-Cons, or maybe it's just the left one, I'm not sure, has a feature called HD Rumble. And the way they showed this is like, hey, you can feel a ice jingle in a cup, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? When they started talking about fucking ice jingling in a cup, I'm like, this what?
I mean,
Doesn't
the
make any
idea is
sense.
Cool, I guess.
It's
You just wanna
cool.
See how it's implemented into a game. And
Right.
Is it just going to be a function that looks cool, like I don't know, the 3D cameras on the 3DS,
Yeah.
and then you never use it again, and
Right.
it's added cost to the system? Like, is this a really good idea? HD Rumble.
Sure. Like, is it a gimmick or does it make a substantial difference? And I think that is still to be seen. It sounds like a cool idea. Like, in theory, it's a weird thing, but I just don't know how it really impacts the game. And that's maybe an important point that we have to
What
think
did
about.
you think about 1-2 Switch?
Well, before we talk about 1-2 Switch, I also want to talk about that we now know there are shoulder buttons on the Joy-Cons, which are titled SR and SL, and they're very tiny, they're very small, but what it seems like is every Switch is going to come packed in with a adapter for the Joy-Con, which basically extends its size, which makes it more comfortable to hold, and also gives you two much bigger shoulder buttons to press. So you have the potential of carrying that around with you. I just think that as far as it goes to help make the Joy-Con bigger and more comfortable, I don't know that I'm going to carry around extra things with me. Like, the convenience of the Switch is just to have the system and slot those things in, and you know, doing that and having the expandable thing to make the Joy-Con bigger just seems like a clumsy extra step that I don't want to
I
take.
mean, they've got the wrist straps, obviously, and if you think about when you're going to be using the wrist straps, it's going to be for all those, you know, motion games.
Yeah.
That you're probably more likely to play in front of a TV than when you're on the go.
Well, you say that, but then 1-2 Switch has the whole pitch of it being, hey, you're not looking at a screen, you're looking at each other. So that and I was kind of talking about it during the stream. Was the point
You never
is
saw the screen. It was always just looking at people dancing about.
yeah, I mean the screen was kind of like there were two people and then there was like a screen in the middle, basically, like behind them or something. And so let's maybe quickly mention what is 1-2 Switch, because people might not know, although everyone clearly listening to this has watched the press conference, unless you're a strange person who's wandered into this podcast unknowingly. So 1-2 Switch is, I guess it's a kind of reality reel. It's not virtual reality. It's a reality game. It's just a motion game, essentially, where you hold a Joy-Con and someone else holds a Joy-Con, and it seems like kind of WarioWare style mini games, but in real life. And the big example they showed was a Western setting where two people with guns, a quick draw where they basically pull out the Joy-Con, and the first person to pull the trigger to shoot is the winner. And in concept, it's cool. Like, it's a very Nintendo thing. Like, you look at it and you're like, that has Nintendo written all over it. But I think the real issue with it is it seems like a thin experience. Like, how often are you going to play this game again and again? Is there going to be modes to it that vary things up? Like, this whole Western style of pulling out and pulling the trigger, it doesn't seem like that's a game you're going to be playing for hours on end. It's like a thing you take to parties, I guess, and people have fun with. And actually, like, to that degree, I think it's probably smart of them to make this as, if they want to propagate the Switch through many different people and show it off to a wide consumer base, then having people who adopt it hardcore, who take it round to a party, who pull it out and like have this fun kind of party style setting, it allows people to be like, oh, this thing's really cool, and maybe want to buy one for themselves. Kind of like the Wii, you know, like that had to be played for people to understand. This is different, and I think the danger is, if they go down this route, is I think people, when they bring it to parties, it's going to be fun, they're going to enjoy it, but then they're going to be like, oh, that was fun for like a couple hours. I don't feel like I need to go out and buy this. Like, it doesn't seem like a compelling proposition, especially when we live in an era where motion isn't novel anymore. Like, it's not a selling point.
Yeah, and this thing is more expensive than the Wii, and it's like Nintendo just could not resist that really casual Wii market. They
Yeah,
like it was just too tempting for them. Like
right.
the prospect from that previous trailer, I'm talking about the reveal of the Switch initially. It was so sort of like this is aimed at sort of gamers and like you're going
Right.
to be on the go. And yes, there are casual elements to it, but ultimately this is Nintendo getting back to what was the appeal of stuff like the GameCube and the Nintendo 64, where
Absolutely.
they were saying, look, we've got the games, you got Zelda, you got all these great games, you're going to go on the go. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, and the Joy-Cons are also Wiimotes. And it's like, oh, messaging is just they're trying to appeal to everyone now, and it's that is a really concerning thing that was made so clear from the start of this conference, especially with the game 1-2 Switch, which does look interesting, but like you said, it's maybe going to be fun for an afternoon. It's looking like it's not going to be packed in. So how much is it going to be standalone? Is
I don't even
anyone
know
going to
if it's
pick
going to
it
be
up?
launched. I don't think they even said a release date for
Like,
it.
if it's not launched, then what's the point? Like, it's
Right.
just there's still really mysterious things going on. They really emphasized the blue and the pink Joy-Con, but other than it being a separate skew of the system, there wasn't any point.
No, I mean
It's really weird.
that's cosmetic though. We know that.
I
That's the
know it is
reason.
cosmetic, but market it with it in some way. Like it's like I assumed that the blue and pink Joy-Cons would come with 1-2 Switch in like its own package, and
Okay.
that might be the only way to get the blue and the pink Joy-Con, for
Maybe.
example. And obviously, it doesn't look like that's the case.
But the thing is, like, I'm not sure if you really need to even buy extra Joy-Cons because it seems that this game
Because
is.
you can't.
Yeah, it seems like this game is
Happen.
just built for you just own the Switch and you have Joy-Cons that are already there. Like, it seems it's a two-player game, right? Like, it doesn't seem like there's expandable options for more people to join in. So, from that perspective, like, even having this packed in with extra Joy-Cons doesn't make much sense. Like, yeah, it's a very different situation. It's a very different era, and I think like this idea is the wrong time. You know, like it's just not. It shouldn't be a big focus, and unfortunately, they spent a lot of time on it, which makes you think like it could be. You know, they could like shove this down the marketing.
And I mean, maybe 1-2 Switch is going to be actually a really, really fun game.
Sure.
And I'm not by
Look,
any means ruling it out or trying to talk it down. I'm just
there
really
seems, from
intrigued.
that quick trailer they showed, there was a lot of variety in terms of different styles of games that you had available to you. So even if, like, you get bored after 10 minutes of playing the Western thing, well, maybe there's, like, 20 other games available that you can kind of cycle through and have fun with. And maybe there's a tournament mode that is good for parties, you know? Like, there are hooks they can put in there to be able to get people on board with it. But as someone who, you know, back in the Wii day, I was so excited for those kind of experiences. And I feel like now my perception has changed vastly. Like I'm much more ingrained into just a traditional video game setting. And if I was 14 watching this, I would be really excited for 1-2 Switch. I think, oh man, that's so cool. And it's also because of, like, you know, back at school, we'd see each other all the time and we would have multiplayer opportunities. The problem with this is I just don't see there being that many multiplayer opportunities.
True. And I mean, the cool thing about Switch, like we've already mentioned, is you're right. It's a two-player game. There's two Joy-Cons on every single Switch. So no matter where you are, assuming you, let's say, download this onto the Switch, you can play that game, and that's quite a cool experience. It's a bit like, you know, when we played that silly table tennis ping pong game
Yeah.
on WarioWare.
I love that.
It's almost the same playability as that, where
Sure.
no matter where you are, you've got two shoulder buttons on your DS
Right.
or whatever, so you're still able to play. It's that mentality with the whole game made around it, which is quite exciting to some degree.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be some WarioWare influence in here. Like, these are going to be almost micro games. Like, you can imagine this whole Western thing is not going to take you 5 minutes to play. It's going to be 2 seconds. Like, who can press it faster? It is very snappy, very just move on, and makes sense. So that was a way they kicked off. That was the first game they showed. Quickly following that, they introduced a new game, a new IP, one might say. It's called ARMS, and again, this was very motion focused. It's really weird because the setup for it is that this thing is supposedly a very kind of not hardcore, but like nuanced fighting game. It's like, oh, look at it. It's like, you know, boxing, but you have these things that kind of move further out and you have to dodge around and everything. Like, if you just saw it without knowing that it was based on motion, you'd think, oh, that looks really cool. Like, it has a lot of depth to it. It's something that I could get into and I could get down with. And then they're like, oh no, so you hold the Joy-Cons up and you're like tilting to move to the side, and then you have to punch to do it, and then if you tilt at this angle, like, it'll do an angled punch. Like, there's a lot of that stuff going on. It's a lot of Wii era. It felt like Wii boxing.
It literally is Wii boxing,
Yeah.
in the sense that, like, you move both Joy-Cons left to move left and right to move right, and that's the same movement as the nunchuck and Wiimote to move left and right in boxing, and obviously the punches mirror. And this was really weird. It was very early on as well. It was straight after 1-2 Switch. It
Yeah.
was obviously so motion focused. It's really shocking.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Like, the first half of this press conference really felt like I was in 2006 watching the Wii press conference for the first time. You know? Like,
And we're not talking about like a mini game that's part of a compilation like Nintendo Land. This is an entire game.
Yeah.
And they market it as like a combination of boxing and shooting, and fine, but whatever. It's just not what people were looking for with this.
No.
And even the casual market, I think it's maybe slightly overwhelming to buy an entire fighting game that's based on motion like that.
Yeah.
And that's something as silly as it might be. I think 1-2 Switch might have a lot more appeal than a game like ARMS, which looks like quite a hardcore game, but it's ultimately
Totally.
quite casual in the sense that it's entirely motion based and looks like an evolution of Wii Sports Boxing.
yeah, I think just from a base level, everything going on with them trying to recapture this market and doubling down on motion again feels too little too late. Like, they shouldn't be crutching on these old ideas to bring people back to them. And I think the number of people that watched that Switch trailer and were excited about just playing games on the go, I should have told them, you don't need to worry about this stuff anymore. Like, people are going to be interested in the system if you just put good games on it that people want to take with them. Like, that is the base level of what they needed to do. And I don't think ARMS is going to sell well. I don't think people are going to be interested in it. I don't think 1-2 Switch is going to take off in that same way that Wii Sports did. Like, all this stuff could have been great when the Wii was big, and as soon as people see this stuff again, they're going to be like, oh, I remember, I still have that Wii. I don't really need, to play this motion game.
And when you think about, say, so for launch, we're going to get, not maybe at launch period, 1-2 Switch and ARMS, like, so these are the motion-based games.
Yes.
What if motion-based games just fade away after the first few months of Switch, and then because they're not selling well, and after that it's only going to be your more traditional games selling well?
Yeah.
You're still having a Switch that has all this motion technology in it that is will become completely pointless, and it's
Right.
It's going to drive up the cost of the system partially. So
Maybe.
How cheap could the Switch have been had they just cut motion entirely?
Yeah,
and not done
potentially.
games like 1-2 Switch and ARMS.
The one thing that I'll come back at you with that is, by having motion here, it allows them to do things like Splatoon, which obviously you like having that, and you need a gyro accelerometer for that. Also, it allows them to do backwards compatibility through Virtual Console with Wii games if they wanted to do that. So, like, there are reasons to have it aside from these mini games, but I just don't think they're compelling reasons, Like, some people will buy Virtual Console games, but ultimately a lot of people who are interested in replaying Wii games, hey, guess what? They probably own a Wii already, and they probably have a lot of the games on there that they wanted to play. And if they don't want to go back and do that system, then, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a proposition that many people are going to be jazzed about. So yeah, those are two kind of starter games that we kicked off with, ARMS and 1-2 Switch. Both new IPs, I guess, to some degree. I think ARMS is more of a new IP in the sense that it has characters. From those character perspective, I really like the look of the characters. Like, the game looks really nice. It has a style to it. It has like panache, and I could see a Smash Brothers representation from those guys, Like, I could see these guys being put into Smash Brothers easily, and they'd have a cool move set, and it would be really neat. Interesting they didn't talk about Smash Brothers at all in this presentation, which it's going to happen. It might be an E3 thing. They might want to tie it with another Smash Brothers tournament at E3. Like, that might make sense. So we'll see about that. It's hard to like figure out what order they went in, so I'm just going to start cherry picking stuff, Bally. Let's talk about some kind of system level things. So we've got a very brief glimpse of the menu screen. It looked slick. It looked very good. What did you think of that kind of like short tease we had? Like you saw kind of icons across the bottom. We saw Mario and Zelda kind of center of the screen. Seems like a 3DS-esque thing. If you like, instead of having lots of boxes, like you reduced it to the single line of 3DS home menu. Feeling okay about that? It looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, it was so brief, and we didn't get any description of functionality really in connection with it. So I
and there may be materials out there right now that are showing off more of that stuff, but we're reacting directly to this event. So in our next episode, I'm sure we'll have more details about everything, and we can discuss in more depth. But for the moment, just a brief glimpse at the menu screen, which, I always like to see UI. I'm very interested into how the system will run, because it's going to be an ecosystem that I'm going to be using for many years, so it's good to have a look at that. Here's a controversial one, Bally. We're now going to be paying for Switch's online services. So interesting things have come out after the presentation that suggest that you'll pay for the online service, but you will get stuff like voice chat as a part of that. So that's going to be like a system level thing, it seems. I think that DNA's probably been working on this and helping them out to get it more modern. Kimishima also mentioned that you can invite friends to play through online multiplayer using your phone, and you can chat and do stuff through your phone as well. So this may be like the system itself is not going to have super well integrated stuff, and you're going to have to do it through your smart device, which seems a bit ridiculous. I would think that they should have all this stuff built into the system as well, and the smart device is an additive thing that they would allow you to just do as a bonus. Do you think that that's likely? Because I'm not sure. Like the messaging seemed a little weird around it.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused by it all. If it's just like some sort of app on your phone that can like say like, "Hey, I'm online now. Let's go play Mario Kart" or something. I don't quite know how it's going to work in terms of paying for the service. I think, unfortunately, it's becoming gradually more of a reality. The more that I guess companies like Nintendo are going to invest in their online, like,
right?
They need to link it up somehow to some sort of revenue stream.
I mean, ultimately, you get a better online service if there is money being funneled into it.
Exactly. I think we just have to really hold like Nintendo's feet to the fire on this in terms of right, we're paying money for this, therefore
it better be fucking good. Basically,
you have to provide a good system. Exactly. Like if there's no change in how good their online is, and it's just not great, and people are paying for it, then that's really, really worrying. Like the second you're paying money, it has to be good.
Absolutely. Like they, I think Sony are kind of coming under fire for this, because PSN still has terrible download speeds and generally is just a bit of a mess, and yet people are paying for PlayStation Plus. The thing that Sony are able to leverage, of course, and Microsoft as well now, is that they have their services, PlayStation Plus and Games with Gold, both which offer a selection of games every month that you can download, and as long as you are subscribed to the service, you get access to those games. A lot of people call them free games. Don't like to call them free games because they're not free, because you're paying for a service. So Nintendo apparently are going to be offering a similar thing, although it seems significantly weaker than what their competitors are doing, and this may expand in the future, but at the moment it seems like you'll be able to access stuff like an NES or Super Nintendo title one a month, and the Super Nintendo titles are apparently going to have online play added to them, which is kind of crazy as an additive thing. That's very cool. And they did, if you notice, Bally, in one of the sizzle reels, show off Super Street Fighter 2, which Super Nintendo game and one of the most beloved fighting games of all time. People being able to play Street Fighter 2 online through Switch, I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about that. So I feel like if they want to make this thing priced at, say, $60 a year, like PlayStation Plus is, they need to offer something that's more than just one NES or Super Nintendo game. Like, that seems incredibly light compared to their competitors. So I'm worried that it's going to not kind of hit that level, because Nintendo do stuff like this, where they're like, it's fine, you'll pay for it. And I'm not sure if people will, if they're not getting a good deal out of it, you know?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see like how that Super Nintendo Online functionality can work. I think it'd be um, incredible to play a game like F-Zero online. Like that's pretty exciting.
Right, the Super Nintendo version. That sounds really cool. But obviously, you know, we want to play Smash Brothers all the time. Guess what? We now have to fucking pay for it. So we better not have sessions anymore, Bally, that lag out and are terrible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much, because
They'll be unforgivable.
otherwise Nintendo need to fucking get their shit together. So yeah, online, I guess they are pushing forward with that as much as they possibly can. Battery life, Bally. They mentioned it very briefly, but they said, depending on the game, the battery life will be between 2.5 to 6 hours.
The range they've given themselves for that is hilarious.
It is, but it's also understandable to the extent that if you're playing Pokemon Red, you're not going to be burning the midnight oil, whereas Breath of the Wild is probably going to like kill you real fast.
Yeah, and that is unfortunate. And obviously, Breath of the Wild are going to be wanting to wander around in that world for hours on end.
Totally.
And you won't be able to do that on the go
No.
necessarily. So
Yeah.
that is a shame, but I think it's predictable. And 2 to 6.5 hours, yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure there are also ways to bring that down, like screen brightness is a big deal on 3DS especially. Like that helps to bring the amount of juice you get out of it down. Turning off the Wi-Fi probably helps as well. That makes sense. I'm not sure what other things you could switch off to maybe extend your battery life as much as possible, aside from adding in a PC-style slider which reduces graphics. There's not really a way to do that efficiently. So yeah, I think it's livable, honestly. Like it's not a nightmare scenario, but it's not like the best thing in the world either. So we'll deal with that battery life. I think I can live with it. And they also noted that you can charge, you can play while charging, and the charging is going to be USB-C, which is a current format that most people are adopting these days. So if you have a phone that uses that, you can just go ahead and do it. Most Android phones, I think, use this. They may use a form that's before this. I think USB-C is more modern, but I'll have to check that and make sure I'm right. But needless to say, people will have cables available to them because most electronics will be moving to the system. So
how about we talk about some games?
We could do, but let's also confirm a couple things. It's not region locked, Bally. That was a rumor for ages. Region locking is not the case. We don't have to worry anymore about any of that nonsense, and thankfully Zelda's going to be at launch, so we don't have to import it. But if there is a situation that crops up later down the line, and say that America for some reason gets Fire Emblem first, I don't know why that would happen, but say they do, I can just go ahead and order it from America. I'm very interested about this, like, how is their store going to operate? Because if you look at the Sony ecosystem, they have an account-based system, which is what Nintendo's moving towards, where you can sign in dependent on region. So you could make a Japanese account on a PS4 and access the Japanese PlayStation store. So my question is, are these stores going to be region-specific? And if so, can I switch between them? If I can I then download stuff from another region? Can I pay using credit card and that stuff, or do I have to buy paid cards from like an online place or code from an online place to get currency on there? I think PSN allows you to use cards, but you can't use credit cards if you're using Japanese store and stuff like that. So these are a lot of questions that I want answered, and it potentially alleviates the problem of importing if I can just download it instead of import it. And it certainly, despite the fact that it'll be more expensive digitally, I think that the fact that the import will also add extra costs means that I would rather just have it on my system, you know? Make more sense.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they do some sort of ability to switch between regional shops. Or,
yes.
I have a feeling we'll be locked into Europe in some way, but we'll see.
Yeah. I hope that that goes well. And again, DNA is supposed to be handling all this back-end stuff. They're supposed to be absolutely just doing most of the legwork. So we shall see how that goes, because that seems like a big thing that they need to get right, and I have hopes. Okay, Bally, let's talk about video games, because that's why we're all here.
Say let's save the big two till the end.
Sure, if you want to, because it's probably going to take a long time to talk about. Let's start with Splatoon, I think, or currently known as Splatoon 2, a sequel, no less, which is very surprising considering a lot of people have been talking about the fact that there's going to be Wii U Deluxe editions. Mario Kart was kind of announced after the stream, although we know that's basically the thing that was coming from the initial trailer. Yes, so as we were saying, frickin' Splatoon 2, it didn't look like a sequel to me, if I'm honest. Like, I look at it and I'm like, okay, new weapons, new stages, not much mechanical changes. Like, there's some stuff in there. There's a flood-like jetpack. They've added, like, the strings from the single player that you can go across. I imagine this would mean a new single player, brand new single player content, which sounds good. That single player was okay. I liked it. I know you really liked the single player Splatoon. So that seems like something that could get a lot of life out of it. This is going to be their premier title for online, I imagine. After Mario Kart comes out, it's probably the first new game that's really going to use online. How do you feel about it being a sequel, Bally? Do you think they are biting off more than they can chew? Do you think they are kind of saying this is a sequel? And I guess the thing is with the shooter space, it's very different, and this is the first time Nintendo have done a shooter sequel, right? And you look at the Call of Duties of the world, and like those changes are very incremental game to game. So maybe I shouldn't be disappointed that it's not making that big a change, but this is Nintendo we're talking about, and I expect from sequels for them to kind of be more vast in the differences.
Be more radical.
Right,
yeah.
more radical.
I feel that, but I do think that it's not just new weapons. I do actually think these weapons are substantially different and will affect the gameplay far more so than the new weapons they added, for example, throughout the original Splatoon. So I think that there is a lot of room for how radically different matches and gameplay will feel.
Right.
I thought the new maps were looking fantastic. I think that's a given. I think they were going to do new maps no matter what, whether it's an expansion or a new game. You're right, there might be a new single player mode. That'd be nice. It just needs more online modes. I think as slick as the online is with Splatoon, it can get slicker. I think that they can, for example, have the ability to pick maps or something like that.
Or just change the way that they approach map choosing, because really by the end of that game, it was becoming a bad method of doing stuff. Like, you could go online and be like, oh, for fuck's sake, I want the new maps, and I've just like come on for my one session and it's not going to change for another 2 hours. Like, that was a real problem. I think that at the beginning was fine because there was so few maps, but now is just a pervasive issue. And I don't know what they would do to change it, like whether they would make it just a rotation that keeps rotating randomly through all the maps. And again, it seems like they're going to have the same rollout as they did with the original, where they're going to start with like relatively small amount of content and gradually expand it over the coming weeks and months. But yeah, they definitely need to make changes there. I think generally, like, getting into games with your friends and like partying up was pretty well done. Like, there's no voice chat, of course, and I think this online service, adding voice chat, is going to help to organize times, and especially through the smartphone apps, it seems like it'll be easier to connect to friends. So that is helpful. But yeah, I'm not sure there's a huge amount they need to diverge from, because I found it was pretty smooth generally.
Yeah. And I think it looks good, and I think there will be enough to warrant the fact that it's a sequel and not some sort of expansion, but we shall see.
We mentioned before that it is going to use motion control still if you want to do that. They showed multiple control schemes, and you can still use sticks if you want to. They also mentioned that the stuff that was previously touchscreen exclusive, which was jumping to specific points on the map, is now going to be bound to a button. So you just press the X button, and then you can choose what spot you jump to with your teammates, which is an easy solution. Like, that touchscreen stuff I never thought was integral, and people are like, oh, what are you going to do? Well, yeah, obviously just bring up a menu and do it. So that's what they've done. That's the easy solution. And yeah, Splatoon 2 looking okay. The fact that they've called it Splatoon 2 makes me way more likely to buy it as opposed to skipping it, it being a port, despite the fact that it looks not that much different. Which is maybe a sneaky move by them to be like, oh, it's new, you should buy it, as opposed to just, waiting for the next like big jump, which I hope if they do a third one that it will significantly change things up and be different. But Splatoon's a winning formula and people love it, and I think that across the board it's been a success, so it makes sense that they would do that.
What's next?
maybe let's should we cover some third-party stuff, because I think that a lot of that stuff is very middle of the road and not exciting and just kind of worrying to some degree, but also very expected from Nintendo's point of view. They said Skyrim was happening. They went to a video of Todd Howard, and Todd Howard was like, yeah, Skyrim, you can take it anywhere with you. It's real good. So that's happening. We knew about that, but Bethesda couldn't confirm it because Nintendo had stupid NDAs. Anything about Skyrim, Bally? If it comes out at Switch, I guess you're not, or launch, I say, you're not going to be particularly interested.
It's such a cool announcement. It's so great it's coming to Switch. And I feel really sorry that it's just going to come out at the same time as Breath of the Wild. Because
yes.
For the Nintendo hardcore like me, who have experienced very few proper open world games, having the ability to have an experience like Skyrim is really appealing. But when one of your favorite series of all time, Zelda, is about to move deep into open world,
right,
you're going to want to do that instead.
Exactly.
And open world games take a long time.
They do, so and Bally is someone with not a lot of time. You don't appreciate having multiple of those at the same time.
I want to spend my time playing open world Zelda over open world Skyrim, as good as I'm sure Skyrim is.
Also, it's an old game, and you can get to it whenever. You know, like there's no time pressures for that.
Exactly. I'm happy it's on the system. I look forward to it, just not at launch. Let's do it later.
Yeah. Makes sense. Let's talk about Square Enix. They showed a few things off. They talked about Dragon Quest X, which this is a Japanese press conference, so that makes sense for them. Dragon Quest X is an MMO. It has never been released in the West. I'm not sure if it will on Switch. I doubt it. You know, the funny thing about Dragon Quest X, Bally, is it originally came out on Wii. It then came out on Wii U, and it's now coming out on Switch. That's 3 Nintendo platforms in a row it's coming out on. Same can be said for Just Dance 2017, which is coming out on Wii still. It is coming out on Wii U and is still coming out on Switch. So Ubisoft there with Just Dance. No Ubisoft in this press conference, surprisingly. Aside from, if you paid close attention in that trailer, we're talking about third parties, about, there's not much stuff. Rayman, but also Steep. The open world snowing, skiing, snowboarding game that kind of bombed really hard because it came out. Yeah, it came out already. No one knows that it came out, but it bombed so hard. Like, I feel like that game got buried, and maybe it can have new life on Switch. I don't know if you'd be interested. Did you ever play like SSX stuff in the past? Because I remember going over to Ali T's house and playing SSX a bunch.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
I have 1080 on the N64. Yeah. I've not played massive amounts of either of them.
Nah.
They're okay.
Steve's not something that...
Making open world is appealing to me more so than not, so maybe...
It's interesting. Okay, back to Square Enix, little Ubisoft tangent there. Square Enix also announced, obviously, Dragon Quest XI is coming. We've known that forever. They were the first people to ever talk about a Switch game because they couldn't keep their fucking mouths shut. And 11 is coming, and everyone's excited for it because it's a brand new Dragon Quest game that isn't a goddamn MMO. They also announced that the 2 Musou games, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2, are going to be bundled together and both being released. So for everyone who likes Dynasty Warriors, have fun. For us, we'll continue to ignore that entire franchise because fuck that. And we don't give a shit about Dynasty Warriors. So talking about Dynasty Warriors, I want to quickly mention Fire Emblem Musou, which is a Fire Emblem Dynasty Warriors game, which they showed basically nothing of. It was very teasery-ish trailer. Fucking fly in my face. And yeah, I don't know. Bally, any interest whatsoever?
No.
All right. It is 6 a.m., so,
It is, yeah.
Can't conjure much enthusiasm for a Fire Emblem Dynasty Warriors game at any time, let alone this time in the morning. I don't know. I think that, for me personally, as far as Fire Emblem spin-offs go, I would much rather have a kind of Soul Calibur-esque fighting game. I thought that would be awesome, and that's not going to happen, really. So that is... disappointing, perhaps, but people fucking love Dynasty Warriors, so they're getting Dragon Quest, they're getting Fire Emblem. It seems like, hey, if you want a cheap, easy game that you can cash in on a fan base, talk to Tecmo Koei, and they will hook you up with a goddamn Warriors game. So next up, actually, talking of Square Enix, they also announced a new game, the name for which I am trying to find. Okay, I found it. They announced a new game called Project Octopath Traveler, which I wonder who's developing this, because I know Tokyo RPG Factory, who worked on I Am Setsuna, side tangent, I Am Setsuna was in that montage as well, so that's coming to Switch, which is cool. It's a very neat RPG, apparently, very Chrono Trigger influence. But this new game is basically a sprite-based game that is set in a 3D environment, or at least like a 2.5D world that has some depth to it. It looked really nice, and it kind of, to some degree, solves that problem of we want to put out something that kind of has a bit of production value to it, but we don't want to just put out like a thing that looks like a Super Nintendo game, and like we can't necessarily charge that much money for it. So it looks like this is the sort of thing that maybe would have come to 3DS in the past and is now coming to Switch. And that's exciting, because it kind of opens the door to them being able to kind of bridge that gap and cross the barriers and everything. So did it look appealing to you at all, Bally? I know like you've played some RPGs, but you're gradually kind of getting into them slowly. I've dived like whole hog into them in recent years, so I'm very interested in how this does.
Yeah, I've not got enough experience in RPGs, and I'll be honest, there was only one RPG that we'll get to later that excited me the most.
Sure.
So I'll hold my
hold your cards there,
perhaps.
Okay,
yeah.
No problem. We had Atlas talking about Shin Megami Tensei. It was a very weird trailer, probably SMT5, I would imagine. But as someone who doesn't play SMT, only likes Persona, not really bothered about that. So there is that. There were some other third-party things which were weird, where developers came on stage and talked. FIFA was announced, which was like, hey, we're EA, we gave you the bare minimum possible, it's FIFA, now we're going to fuck off again because we're EA and we suck. Sega came out to talk, but then Suda51 came on stage, and man, this was an awkward moment in the conference, because that translator didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He had no idea what Suda was saying, or he was just a bad translator. Maybe he was nervous. I don't know what. That translator was tripping balls. He was just not in the same plane of existence as anyone else. And he essentially, Suda confirmed that Travis Touchdown is back, my boys, and probably No More Heroes 3 is going to come out on Switch, which is great, because, he has a history of working with Nintendo on the first No More Heroes games. I really like No More Heroes, the first game. It's a very cool game. It has issues. I still have to play the second game. Maybe this will give me a kick in the arse to actually go play that second game, because it's been sitting in my Wii, box of games for fucking ever. I bought it at a discount shop for, £5 years ago, and I still have to get to it. So I'm excited, because No More Heroes is a very fun series. It's very irreverent, has a great tone to it, and is just wacky and crazy and very Suda. So I'm interested, Bally. I think you should play the original No More Heroes at some point. I think you'd enjoy it. It's a very weird Japanese game, but it has things in it that are very appreciable. So that's exciting to me personally. And I was I was saying out loud that Eric, our friend Elo, he's a huge fan. He's cosplayed as Travis Touchdown before at PAX and stuff. So I saw his tweet go out, and he was going fucking crazy about it. So I'm sure that was the announcement that made his night. But moving onwards, was there anything else from those third parties, Bally, that you saw? The montage flashed by. Was there anything you wanted to pick out from that particularly, or did it seem?
Already mentioned, I'm very excited about 2D Rayman, if that is a new game.
It looked like Legends to me.
It did,
and we just played Legends very recently, so I think I could tell. That's what it was.
We'll see. It's more the first parties that I'm getting hyped about.
Absolutely. Talking of first parties, let's get this one out of the way. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe wasn't actually talked about during the conference.
No.
It was shown when they were demonstrating some of the features at the beginning. I think when they were demonstrating Joy-Con stuff, they had Mario Kart on the screen, and we saw there was a proper battle mode, which was the rumor for a long time. Hey, by the way, battle mode has come. And indeed, it will have battle mode. It will also have up to 8-player local wireless play, which was a big thing. You can have 8 switches all in the same place, everyone playing Mario Kart, which seems chaotic and great, and something that people in Japan will do a lot of. Not sure how big it will be over here, but, it's nice to have the option. It seems like all the DLC from Mario Kart 8 is going to be in there, but they are also adding new characters, including King Boo, who was confirmed from the initial trailer, Dry Bones and Bowser Jr., as well as Inkling Girl and Inkling Boy from Splatoon. So the Smashification of Mario Kart continues, Bally. It's still called Mario Kart, though. So
Yes, I've never been massively into battle mode, and I'm a little concerned that there isn't quite enough here for me to be keen on this game.
That's really shocking as someone who is the biggest
need
Mario Kart fan I know.
Because what I need is lots of extra tracks, essentially.
Yes.
That's what I would need, and I'll definitely be wanting a multiplayer online experience on Switch, but I'm siding way more with Splatoon 2 than
Fair.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe right now from those presentations.
Yeah, as limited
need more.
as limited as the Splatoon upgrades seem, it definitely seems more than what Mario Kart 8 is providing. Like Mario Kart 8 definitely seems like a deluxe version.
Exactly, and I'm still confident that potentially for May, my prediction of some sort of Smashification, bringing F-Zero in at Wave Race, who knows, into some sort of Nintendo racing game that's perhaps separate, perhaps uses the Mario Kart title. I think that might be coming next year, if not the year after.
Maybe. The other things from the Mario Kart stuff is there are 2 new items, one which is a boo that turns you invisible, and apparently has item stealing properties to it, and the other is the feather, which lets you jump. And you were saying
they're both returning items.
Are they both returning? Because
Yeah,
I
so
can't
the
remember where the
feather
boo
was
has
on
come
the
from.
Super Nintendo version, and the boo has been in the N64 and the Game Boy Advance version, I think.
Jesus, see, this is why you're the expert on this podcast about Mario Kart, Bally. You know it all. And apparently, there is going to be 200 CCs included. So, there you go. That launches in April. I can't remember the exact date, but it's in April. So it means that
That's just weird, isn't it?
It seems weird, Bally. But then when you step back and think, Nintendo's big problem has been pacing releases and having constant software coming out over the course of time, it makes sense in that context, right? Because they can say April we have a game, May we have a game. You know, like I assume that Splatoon's going to be May. They say summer. May, its initial release date was May. It seems like May would be smart again, right? Like it would make sense if they just did like, hey, at launch we have this, and then you can get Mario Kart in April, you can get Splatoon in May, you can get Smash Brothers a bit later in September, you can get Mario Maker maybe early in 2018 if they do like more to change Mario Maker than just make it a port or whatever. Because by that point in time, like you would imagine, they want to be moving on to different stuff. So keeping putting out these Wii U ports would not make as much sense. But it's Mario Kart. Again, yeah, for me personally, I'm even less of a Mario Kart fan than you are. So, yeah, they need to show a lot of tracks for me to be interested. And they did show, hey, there's a Splatoon track, which looked neat. I'm sure there's going to be more.
Was it a track or a battle stage?
You might be right. It might have been a battle stage.
I'm worried I didn't see a single new track, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess it might be just new battle stages. You're right. I don't know. Yeah. That seems.
Yeah.
But then
I just need to see more.
Bally, the rumor did say a lot of extra tracks were being added, so I imagine that's something they'll message. We'll see them. I imagine that's something they'll message closer to the time. That seems like the thing that will happen. Okay, so let's maybe start getting into some of the meat here.
Oh boy.
And I think the most surprising announcement of the thing that really got me off my feet was Xenoblade Chronicles motherfucking 2, boys. I'm in it.
Was it just called Xenoblade 2?
Yes, actually, no Chronicles. Just Xenoblade 2.
Chronicles.
Continuing Monolith's weird name scheme. Hey, Xenoblade Chronicles X, Xenoblade 2. You know, like, maybe it will have Chronicles 2 underneath or something. But dude, this is the game that I am jamming on. This is the thing that was a new announcement that we thought Monolith was going to announce something, and I predicted a Monolith game would show up, which I was so excited about. And it seems like they have taken a change in art style, which I think will divide some people. It definitely looks way more anime than before. Like, you look at those faces, they're much better faces than in the other 2 games, for sure. That's probably one of the biggest weaknesses. But they've definitely gone with a style for it. And the chat, Zvari is confirming it is called Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in the West.
Oh,
so we do have that confirmation, which makes sense because that is in line with everything that's going on. So, Bally, what did you think of this trailer? Are you excited about this? Like, for me personally, they are saying that this is a direct sequel to the original Xenoblade. The original Xenoblade is one of the best RPGs ever made. It is a stunning achievement. It is so much fun. It is just a world that I adore and a story that is one of my favorites in all of video games. So if they are focusing on narrative and they are picking things up, and I can take it with me anywhere, man.
It looks great for all the reasons that you're right. The first Xenoblade looked incredible, and it's even to do with sort of art style, camera angle. I thought was a huge one. Like the camera's always very low to the ground, very low to the feet of the characters, and that's a real thing they do in the trailers of the original Xenoblade and things like that. And it's something they didn't do as much at all in Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I feel just
I don't know. I feel
feels a lot different.
Well, tonally it does. I think camera angle wise, they definitely showed off the world a lot with Xenoblade X. Like it seemed like Xenoblade X was a game where the world was the main character and the story took a side role.
Yeah, perhaps. And I mean, for me personally, Chronicles X was just mechanically very overwhelming.
Very
dense. I do want to go back to it, and it is. I have got a big mental block with that game.
No, I agree.
With the original Xenoblade Chronicles, I think it's mechanically a much simpler game in so many aspects and much easier to get into.
But it also had a world that I think was much more interesting from a thematic perspective, like the idea of being on these two giants, and it also had a narrative that had its hooks in you.
Incredible. It's so much better. And if this game can get back to ever so slightly simpler mechanics, more story driven, a more interesting world, then I'm all on board.
Yeah, there's definitely things to pick out from that trailer. I think in particular this giant dragon that kind of moves from I'm not sure if there's like the sky that's going on. I saw a sky town that popped up, but there's this huge tree in the center. It definitely feels like the world that we're going to be inhabiting is far more thematically similar to the original Xenoblade, and I'm really curious how this follows on, because the end of the original Xenoblade left the world in a state that could go in kind of any direction, you know, and I'm really fascinated by like how they pick up on that. There's also a shot of the main character standing on this grassy field that looks very similar to like the grass that you see at the opening title screen of the original Xenoblade Chronicles, and they're holding a sword which is red. Doesn't look like the Monado, but has similarities to it. Like, it's much more jagged on its edges, but it has a central kind of circle to it that was glowing, and it looked like it is some form of a Monado to some degree.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's going to take a central role in the story. Yeah, I don't know. These anime characters are maybe... I'm not feeling them 100%, but it's not a deal breaker or anything. Like, the characters seem proportioned a little differently, like... And I'm sure like there's going to be full voice acting, all these cutscenes that they are known for and they do a great job of. So, 100%. Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
There was no date, but it's surely like...
That's 2018. Holiday 2018 at the earliest, I imagine. Like,
definitely.
They've been working on... I mean, Xenoblade X probably wrapped up in early 2015, maybe late 2014, because the Japanese version came out earlier than ours did. So they have probably had more time than we think to work on this game. But yeah, this is the one that like a lot of this stuff we knew was coming. Like everything from Zelda to Mario was like, okay, we're going to get those. But Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the announcement that shook me to my core, one might say. And I was like, yeah, this is why I'm buying a Switch. You know, games like this is what I'm here for. Okay, so moving on then, Bally. Is there anything we want to do before we tackle the big two? Because there's loads of things, like small things that propped up. I think we've covered most of them, but I'm trying to think. Like, I don't want to, you know, we can cover more stuff later. I think I want to really scroll through that montage of third-party games and see what exactly is in there.
Why don't we go for big two now then?
All right, let's close things out with the most important things of the entire show. Is it Super Mario Odyssey? I think it is Super Mario Odyssey. Is the full confirmed title of that Mario game. Holy shit, that trailer was fucking amazing. Look, I've been a fan of EA Tokyo for a long time. I think they had a misstep with 3D World personally. I think that style was much more akin to the 2D Marios, you know, the flagpoles and the levels that were kind of from an isometric perspective, camera-wise, and they're good games. Like, they're very well made. They pop. They look awesome. but I really want to return to, the traditional style. And they cited 64 and Sunshine as influences, which is very, very exciting. It's these big open spaces that you can platform around and do stuff in. There's so much in this trailer. Game Explainer are gonna fucking make millions from analyzing this thing, because there is a lot of stuff going on. I think the first thing to point out, you start in this big cityscape and Mario is walking around with regular looking people, which just, from like a perspective of this cartoon plumber with these normal people, real weird, like very strange to just look at that. So that kind of took me off guard. But I was telling you, and this is something that I've kind of had in my head for a long time, is like open world Mario. What does open world Mario look like? And this might be one of the biggest like explorable areas a Mario game has ever had. And that shot of him wall jumping between buildings and like the view of the cityscape is literally exactly what I've had in my head for years when I think of open world Mario. It's crazy like how much it was realized.
Yeah, this game, I remember it so distinctly. So many podcasts, and we were talking about this a lot. After Mario Galaxy 2, we were like, where does the Mario series go now? Like,
right.
Do they go underwater? Do they go into open world? Do they go into a city or something? And we were kind of like hypothesizing about what on earth Mario could do. And obviously then 3D World came out, and we were like, well, that was not what we imagined. That almost felt like a step backwards, as much as that is a fantastic game.
I think I recorded my reaction to the press conference where they announced 3D World. Go compare my reaction to 3D World to my reaction to this Mario game, and you can tell the difference.
And I mean, 3D World did have stronger trailers later, but not until right before it came out.
Right, that E3 trailer was weak as hell.
Exactly. So the first reveal of it was just terrible. Whereas the first reveal of this Super Mario Odyssey is just incredible.
It has my spine tingling.
It feels like that feeling where Galaxy was revealed. It was that same feeling of they're really expanding with ideas, and the trailer was just absolutely packed to the rafters of just fresh little ideas that they were mixing in things. The cityscape stuff is just fantastic, and it is a bit weird seeing real people walking around, but I think once you have a realistic city, perhaps it would look even more weird if there were no real people in the real city. I don't know how that could work, but
yeah, there's just so many varied locations. I think the idea of it being called Odyssey brings to mind, the idea of traveling around the world, of exploring different places, and it seems like he has this ship that kind of travels around. Like he jumps on it and it kind of like moves him to different locations. So it seems like that will be the portal by which you'll access all of these areas, which is an interesting way to do it. Like there's no hub world, there's no like Peach's castle that you jump in paintings. And to be honest, I don't really need a hub world. If you give me these big open areas, I think that kind of does the job of the hub world in itself, and has like stuff within it. But there are so many things, like when he rolls down the hill, he has this rolling move where he basically turns into almost, Dylan's Rolling Western or whatever style. He's just kind of barreling down.
When he throws his hat and then jumps on it.
Holy shit!
Between two big buildings.
Like that is the innovation that I want from EAD Tokyo. Is like a normal developer. A normal developer would be like, he throws his hat to attack enemies. EAD Tokyo are like, okay, he does that, but also you can use it as a platform to jump. What a fucking genius idea. Like, these guys are such creative minds, and I just love that they keep being pushed and get to do this stuff.
One of my favorite items from any Mario game is actually Mario Galaxy 2, the Cloud Suit, where you're actually creating platforms to jump.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love those levels. It completely revolutionized what you do in a 3D Mario game, because you're creating your own platforms.
Right.
The hat is just like a sort of form of that, almost like a more hardcore form of that, where you throw your hat, you've got this one little platform, and you go, and that's just completely opens up the way you treat a 3D environment to platform.
It just seems like Mario has so many options, like to move around the space. We see that area that was from the initial trailer or the initial Switch reveal video, where it's the kind of Western setting, but he like jumps on an umbrella, jumps up a thing, and then like dives to hit the top of a building and collects these like purple things around the top of the roof. That stuff, like generally, it just looks lush as well. Like there's a big forest area with these giant trees and stuff, and there's this like very colorful kind of Candyland place. Like there is a variation in locales and in mechanics and just in variety overall that just makes this look so fucking appetizing. I'm just so excited to dig my teeth into this game. And the one problem is it's far away. It's a holiday 2017.
Yeah.
And I understand why they do that, because of course you want to have a strong title to just punch people in the face with at holiday. And we were talking about this in our predictions section, was like, what do they have for the holiday? Like Mario, by all accounts, is a game that is just done and it's just sitting there. And the reason it's sitting there is because they just want to save it for a big place, a big kind of moment. And
Yeah.
I get why they do that, but also I really just want to fucking play that game. Like, please.
Yeah, I mean, will it affect me personally massively? Maybe not, because I'm going to spend so much time playing Zelda.
Right, Zelda. Oh my god. I don't think you need to buy another launch game.
Exactly. And this whole year, if it had been Mario and Zelda at launch, that's awesome. But you're right, maybe that might have made the title coming out holiday 2017 maybe a little lackluster in comparison to a game like Super Mario Odyssey, which is just a fantastic name and is so hyped with this whole trailer now.
Yes.
So I can see why they've done it, and I guess that's like you said about spreading out what you have. It makes sense.
It's annoying because fuck, that game looks good. Oh, it looks good. And again, we can play that game anywhere, you know? Like, I can just be on a bus, like, exploring these gorgeous Mario expansive places. It's so exciting. I just think, like, that whole idea that he does, like, some swinging on lampposts and stuff. Like, you can take the environment of a cityscape and just transform it around Mario's abilities and powers. And I think he, like, trampolined off of a car bonnet and stuff to reach higher places. Like, it seems like there's going to be environmental stuff all over the place that helps you figure stuff out and just get around this area. And I'm really curious about the structure of it. Like, is it going to be based on Mario 64, where you have multiple objectives in these open worlds that you go after? Like, are there going to be stars hidden behind different things that you have to do, or are they going to figure out some new solution to that? Like, I'm curious, because this isn't, you know, there's no flagpoles here. This is 64 Sunshine game, essentially.
I mean, if you think about, like, the most expansive Mario areas, I'd even argue something like the hub world of Mario Sunshine is a really big one, so Delfino Plaza.
Yeah.
It's almost like an expanded version of that. And so Delfino Plaza, you can get multiple shine sprites hidden throughout the hub world.
Yeah.
And I think that even if each of these worlds we've seen in this trailer aren't hub worlds, they're still really expansive worlds that I'm confident will have, assuming it's stars, who knows what the collectible will be, but I think they'll have multiples scattered throughout the world that you can explore and find for yourself. It won't be a linear objective, especially not like 3D World, for example.
I think there might be fewer worlds overall,
Perhaps, yeah.
but they're much larger, and as a result, you have much more to do in each one. So, say like Mario 64, there were like 7 stars in each stage, maybe 10, 8 maybe.
I think it varied.
It varied a little bit, but it was usually like 7 or 8. Say there's like 20 in each of these worlds. Like, you have way more objectives to do, and that sounds different enough, and it sounds like it's cribbing from a formula we all love, while adding a bunch of new stuff that is just really fun and innovative and different. It looks fucking gorgeous. Like, you know, there's nothing wrong with this video game. The only thing wrong is we're not getting it sooner. Which is the biggest crying shame of the entire thing. Okay, well, I think aside from that, we have one more thing with the big dog. The launch title for Nintendo Switch, which we've been worried about for a while. Is Europe going to get screwed on this thing? Are we going to get it later? And no, not only is the Switch launching way earlier than everyone expected on March 3rd, but Zelda is going to be launched across the board for everyone. Breath of the Wild, the hypest game in history. Motherfucker, let's go. And let me just say, this might be the greatest trailer in the history of mankind.
Yeah.
I literally had shivers the entire time. Actually, not the entire time. I will say at the beginning, it was like, oh, we're just doing landscapes again. All right, I don't need to see more of this game. But then they start getting into the story stuff, and the voice acting kicks in, and the emotion, like Zelda, like fucking tearfully in Link's arms at the end. Like, they are fucking going for it on a story level to an extent that I just did not think they would. absolute, like, loads of new characters in there, just a variety of locations being shown, cutscenes, like voice acting across the board, like incredible score to go underneath it.
Yeah, it's a real play on the Legend of Zelda theme, but then with like a melodic twist at the end.
Right.
It's like it's its own thing. It's really, really intriguing, and I was just so impressed by this trailer. I thought the number of races, for example, was
right.
like, who are all these people? Like, what's going on? And the voices, and like, there was like a snow Goron sort of.
Yeah,
dude,
Goron in there as well. It
It's
seemed like
like-
some sort of Zora thing that was like maybe fires. I don't know. It was
And that's the thing,
looked different.
there was like a Zora related thing, but there was also like a Ruto related thing. And it's
Yes.
like traditionally they're meant to be the same race, like that's the
Right.
link. So how are they both here? Like, what's the timelines? How's this going to work?
And
It's
there
like,
is a line in there about 100 years ago, and there's going to be something like going on with the past and how that is connected. And then the guy talked about his daughter, which is the King of Red Lion. He's not Zelda's dad, is he? King of Red Lions, or is he?
He is.
He is. Okay, so there's potential King of Red Lion stuff going on in there if we're talking about him and Zelda, or even the leader of the Academy at Skyward Sword is the father of Zelda, I believe, the headmaster. I think.
Right.
Don't
yes,
quote me on that, but I
you're right.
think that he is Zelda's father as
you're
well.
right.
So there are a couple options here for like. Generally, Zelda has had a father in multiple Zelda games, so it could be something completely different. Like, we don't know. That's the thing. Zvari in the chat is also bringing up that the English trailer, there's an English trailer, which we didn't see because we watched the Japanese direct, or the presentation, should I say, has English voice acting, so I'm going to have to go watch that after this. And apparently it's very good, so that's exciting. Like, man, this is the game that I want to play the most. And
Yep.
I think if we look at this presentation, it seems very weak. It seems like, man, those third parties are kind of the things we already knew about. Like Dragon Quest XI, yeah, we knew that was happening. We knew they were probably going to have something with Square Enix. And hey, guess what? Ubisoft are putting a Rayman port on it, and maybe Steep. And also Skyrim, which we knew about. FIFA, hey, we're EA, hey, FIFA, yeah, fuck off. That stuff was very underwhelming, and I think that there's stuff that they still have to announce. Where's Beyond Good and Evil 2? Where is the GameCube Virtual Console? Where is a Metroid game? What the hell are Retro working on? Like, there are questions and questions that are still unanswered, and I thought we would get more answers here, but we're not, and that is disappointing. I get that they want to maybe focus on these motion things for whatever reason, but like, look at that entire presentation, and what are the three things that I'm most excited about? Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Breath of the Wild, and this new 3D Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I agree
All
with
three
those
of
top
those,
three
all
as
three
well.
of those games are just traditional fucking video games that I just play with a controller. Nothing special about them. They could be put on any system in the world, and they would be great. And that is the thing that I'm excited for, and that was the promise of the Switch.
Yeah, I think that with these presentations, maybe not like conferences because we've not had one of these since a long time ago, but
Yes.
with directs and other E3 presentations, it's digital events. We come away so often feeling like there's just one or two big announcements lacking, and
Yeah.
I got that feeling from this. It was just one or two big announcements lacking.
I think it was maybe 3, to be honest. Like,
three. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, the things we're so hyped about, of those, the only surprise was
Xenoblade.
Xenoblade. We knew Mario existed, but seeing it in detail was very exciting.
Yes, that was
And then
very
obviously
exciting.
That Breath of the Wild trailer really set the bar
stunning
high.
trailer.
But yeah, one, two, three big announcements lacking, like a Metroid, like a Smash Brothers, like something, and just
It lacked punch, is what it lacked. Ironically,
the
seeing
amount
as
of
they
time
announced
spent on
ARMS, which is
motion.
a punching game, One thing I will say, production value very high on this thing, and it seems like they're starting to make some of their executives characters again. Like, Takahashi, I think, is the guy was doing all the main presentation with the Joy-Cons. He has kind of a verve to him that was pretty good. His presentation was great with all that kind of CG shit going on around him. And I think Kimishima didn't really do much aside from stand there and talk. Like, he seems very businessman-like. He's not really becoming a character. But I think there are people within the company. I think they are setting people up to, become leaders and become the people in charge later on. So who will run directs and things like that. So that's good to see. But yeah, I don't know. That maybe let's maybe talk a little bit more about the Zelda trailer, because there's one thing I do want to pick up on is Zelda is in the exact same garb as Link is. The blue stuff, which seems like she would. And I screamed, "Oh my god!" in the middle of the trailer, thinking that Zelda was riding the horse and she was playable. But I looked again. It was just Link. I was like, oh, kind of like jumped the gun a little there. But do you think there is a story conceit somewhere in this game where you will play as Zelda for a portion of this game?
I would bet a lot of money on that.
I think there is something going on there.
They are like similar garbs, similar builds.
Yes.
That you're going to see a lot of her. I think that they did come under a lot of flack for not having like a playable female character, female Link. I think that maybe they just didn't want the idea of an extra female character as the protagonist, but that they will have extended segments of this game where you are playing as Zelda. And there might be say there's something plot related where Link is either like locked up or ill, or I don't know, for whatever reason you can't play as him for an extended period of the game, and you are Zelda.
Yeah.
And you're riding on horseback. You got your sword and shield or something, and you can actually just play essentially as Link, but as Zelda, obviously.
Right.
I think that is starting to look more and more likely, because she's not in...
She seems like really integral to this game in a way that she hasn't been before, It seems like she is going to be almost a companion for a lot of what you're doing, and, there's going to be, like, really big story moments going on.
She's not in her big traditional dress. She was in a couple of moments in that trailer, especially with her back turned. But the majority of the times you saw in that trailer and the trailer we saw before, she's in this, like... almost like this unisex blue outfit.
Yes, exactly.
Well. And so let's do it.
Yeah, totally. Good. I'm beyond stoked for that game. It's just like the thing I want injected into my veins, like right fucking now. But yeah, there was again in the other trailer that happened for Zelda, the Game Awards was a kind of dressed person. Some people were like, oh, it's the King of Red Lion. Some people were like, oh, it's Zelda. I think that might be Zelda. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell still. I don't think that dress was shown again in this trailer, although I've only seen it once, and I need to scrub back through. I'm sure Game Explain will have my back on that. Have a feeling Game Explain have a lot of videos.
Game Explain will be working their butts off right now.
Yeah, content for years.
What we've seen,
apparently. So Bally, a lot of stuff missing though, as we've said. Pikmin 4, where the fuck is Pikmin 4? What's going on with that? No one knows.
I don't know.
That game was done 7 years ago, apparently, according to Miyamoto. So... So how do you feel overall at the end of that presentation?
Like, good, because I knew that I'm going to get Switch day one with Breath of the Wild. I knew that before this started, pretty much. I know that for sure now, and that's fantastic. I know that I'm going to spend £280, and then the extra money on Breath of the Wild, that's going to be great. So I'm personally happy from that point of view. I'm really excited about Mario Odyssey come holiday this year. Those are the big two this year that I know I'm going to play this year and really excited about. But beyond that, there's a little lacking. Xenoblade's going to be great. That's going to be cool. Splatoon, I think, is going to be great. Those are my big 4 games at the moment. I know I'm going to probably get all 4 day one. Beyond that, I'm feeling a little lacking. I needed 1, 2, or 3 more announcements, like we said earlier. But
I think these announcements are coming. I just think that they wanted to focus on specific things here, and they took a small amount of time, didn't have that long to explain everything, and I hope that over the coming months we're going to get revealed some other stuff that is happening, like in press releases, or maybe in a Nintendo Direct even that happens. But
I think for sure there'll be a Direct or 2.
What it does feel like is they're holding back for a big E3 that will be like fucking Metroid, Beyond Good and Evil 2, like here's a GameCube Virtual Console stuff. Mother 3. Yeah, where is Mother 3, guys? Come on, like this is.
What if you had a
Where's that Ubisoft Rayman Rabbids Mario RPG crossover? Where the fuck is that? Like so many questions still unanswered, and I feel really bad for like people like Emily Rogers and Laura Kate Dale, because all these assholes on Twitter are going to be like, oh, well, they didn't announce this. It's like, well, yeah, but everything that they said was basically, a lot of the stuff was true. And stuff changes, rumor mills change, and you can't have everything pinned down all the time, and that's the way it goes. But
like you said with Mario, we know that from rumors it's been done for a long time. But you're right, you can't just release it willy-nilly. It's a big hitter. You're going to release it holiday 2017, so what if Pikmin or Mother 3 or Smash Brothers, Metroid, whatever you want to call it, they're waiting for maybe spring 2018 or another slot that'll make it have maximum impact.
What is the one thing you still want to know about Switch, Bally?
When am I getting my beautiful Metroid? And I'm not even thinking 2D or 3D either.
You just want any. You'll take anything.
I need to know where that's going following Federation Force. I just need... Come on, new systems out.
You need some confidence. Basically.
Am I confident?
You need some confidence.
I need some confidence.
Yeah. From Nintendo.
What are you still curious about?
I just want to know more about the OS. As boring as that is, I want to know.
I feel like that's a real direct thing, though.
It
I think
is.
They can do that in a direct.
Yeah. I just want to know how the eShop functions and whether I'm going to be able to bring over Virtual Console purchases and what the upgrade plan will be, and will I have to pay full price for this Mario Kart game? Probably yes, because they're going to put it on a disc, even though I own Mario Kart 8. There are just questions about, how does the interface work? Is the touchscreen, a capacitive? I think they've said the touchscreen is capacitive. It makes sense that it would be. Just kind of bare bones essentials that they didn't talk about. How is the online really going to work? Like, they said it's using smartphones, but...
All we know is we're going to pay for it.
All we know is, we're going to pay for what, though? Like, what comes along with that subscription? We need more than just one NES game. Like, for fuck's sake. NES games have been... We've bought them 200 times already. Fucking get your shit together. You can't just say, one SNES and one NES game is good enough to pay for a fucking online service. Like, that is the one sticking point with me, is like, look, I'll pay for online if it's good and if you give me stuff that is equivalent to what PlayStation and Xbox are doing. If you're not, then fucking no, I can't. And that may mean that I'm not playing Smash Brothers for a few months, and it may mean that I'm not doing that stuff. But I'm not putting money out if you're not providing a good system. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. And I hope that they can actually do something with that, because if you're going to have the audacity to charge, you bloody well better make it worth it. So with that, Bally, I don't know. Let's maybe end on a positive here. What is your favorite part of that entire presentation?
The Zelda trailer. I just think that I was worried they're gonna overegg the trailers, and when it started, I was like, oh, here comes on the Zelda trailer.
Yeah,
but
same.
It was more than that. And beyond, it felt so narrative heavy, and but without giving away much narrative.
Right, exactly.
It's so exciting.
It's a hard line to walk for sure.
That trailer and the Mario trailer, they just absolutely stole the show for me, to be honest, by a long way.
Yeah.
And I knew they were potentially coming in this event, but I didn't think they'd be that good, and I'm really happy about that. So those are my positives.
I think the Zelda trailer was incredible. I think Mario probably beats it, if only because we'd never seen that game before. For surprise factor, for just joyous moments of mechanical craziness and visual diversity, across the board. That trailer just really showed off what is a stunning game that I am just very excited for. And so that is that Odyssey is right top of my list of fuck man, really need this.
And it's Mario and Zelda in 1 year. It's great.
Yes, that's a solid it's a solid lineup for sure. So yeah, Bally, not what I expected from this presentation. Definitely more disappointing than I expected for waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning for. But there were moments that were worth it, moments not so worth it. There's some backsliding happening maybe with this motion stuff, but we'll see how it goes. And, journalists are playing these games. I'm sure we'll hear people talk about 1-2 Switch. We'll hear people talk about ARMS. They said Mario was not playable, although I do think they're going to show it off in the live stream, the Treehouse Live, after, which is going to happen at 2:30 this afternoon UK time.
Playable at E3.
Yeah, it will be playable at E3.
Gamescom.
Oh, well, maybe. We'll see. Could get unlucky there. I think overall... Not what we wanted, but it's a start, I guess. I just worry that they're going to be dragged over the coals by a lot of the media for this, and I think a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum that they were just fucking barreling through, they've hit a snag, for sure. They've hit a snag, and I think this is where the train starts to slow down, and some people are like, I'm out. I'm not on board with Switch anymore. I can totally see it, and I'm very interested to hear people's thoughts after this. I'm going to listen to a lot of podcasts, do a lot of video watching, so it's going to be a fun time to do that stuff. And yeah, thanks, Bally, for joining me. Maybe before we go, actually, because I did pull this hot take from Kevin Sharma from the chat, which was posted earlier in the chat. He said, I think the presentation itself was bad, but the actual content had some real gems in it. If this was condensed to half an hour, opened with Mario, had a much quicker focus on the motion games, went through a sizzle reel of third-party games, and closed on Zelda trailer, it would have been an excellent presentation.
I couldn't agree more. I think that an hour for those number of juicy bits was really frustrating. And there was just too much chat on Joy-Cons. But yeah, Kevin, I completely agree.
Yeah. So there you go. Thanks, everyone, for watching this live. If you're watching it live, if you're on iTunes, thanks for listening. We are the podcast. We come out every 2 weeks, usually. This is a special episode, so you'll probably get one next week because that's our usual schedule. Bally, where can people find you on the internet if they want to?
Please find me on Twitter. I'm at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. That is also my name on the Miiverse. Go check me out on both of those places.
Yes, indeed. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at LordNBZ. You just reminded me about the Miiverse because I didn't talk about that at all. Again, that's another OS level thing. What the fuck are they doing with that? Yeah, you can find me there as well if you want to. Still playing through Aria of Sorrow. So I posted a picture of a chicken that also is a dragon. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty good image there. So check that out. It's hot stuff. You can find the podcast in many places. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. You can review us on iTunes. That's always a good thing to do. And we will see you next time, I guess, after we've watched a bunch of opinion pieces and looked at the Treehouse stuff. I'm sure there'll be a lot more about Switch to talk about. And maybe you can talk to us about it. So how about you send your Switch thoughts to our email address? Bally, you can tell them that.
thisnintendolife@gmail.com. That's thisnintendolife@gmail.com. We want your thoughts on the conference. Was it good? Was it bad? Are you gonna buy a Switch? Have you pre-ordered yet? What's your takes? Give us your questions and we will talk about them in episode 84.
Yes, a lot to digest. So please send all your Switch-related emails there. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.